Okay, in this one, I'm going to show you how I made this crazy liquid sci-fi render right here. So we're going to go over how I did the liquid, the lighting, and how it's all coming together. So CG Geek did a tutorial recently on fluid simulations, so I'm definitely taking some settings from that video too. And last thing is there is a free download on this blend file in the description if you want to take a look around or grab some stuff from it. Okay, so let's get into the video. Okay, so I'm starting this one off with a cube, going down to Object, Quick Effects, and then Quick Liquid, which will just get a basic fluid simulation set up here. And then I'm just editing the domain size by just going to edit mode and scaling that out a bit so there's more room for the splashes. Then I'm adding another cube, going down to the physics settings, and then adding just a fluid thing to that, and then switching the type over to effector here. So there's three types. Effector is the one you want just to affect stuff in the simulation. So now you can see that blocker I added there is actually affecting the liquid. So there's really only 3 or 4 settings that I found were really important to get the look that I wanted. I spent a long time messing with these settings, and this is just what I ended up with. So resolution divisions, which is the top subdivision level at the very top of the simulation, set to 128 or so. The upres factor I set to 4, and then the particle radius I dropped to 1.5. And that's it for the settings. The only other thing I did was initial velocity to get it to move downwards at negative 25 meters per second. Just so it's like going down really fast and hitting this thing with some velocity. Other than that, I don't think you need to change any settings. And if you just do that, you'll end up with something like this here. So this is pretty much what I ended up with after like an hour of changing all these different settings. And it turns out there's like only 3 or 4 you need to change. I think I'm going to do a separate video just on the fluid simulation part here, and I did use some of the spray particles here, but I think that was pretty optional. The most important thing that I did after I got the actual liquid simulation part was I just right clicked it and then hit convert to mesh, and then that lets me just freeze it in place, and then I can actually just take that and select certain parts with just the lasso select tool, and I can just take those chunks and duplicate them out. And now I have like 4 or 5 different little water assets that I can just duplicate around the scene or move around however I want. And that made it a lot easier to customize exactly where the water was going. And then you can get it to look a lot more like it's, you know, flowing around something or hitting something else in the scene, and just get it exactly in the places you want. I think if you tried to simulate it from scratch in this position, it'd be really hard, but by freezing it, converting it to a mesh, and then just duplicating parts around, then it becomes very easy to just customize it in the exact places that you want. So it was actually really nice to have 3 or 4 different chunks of water that I could use and just customize and place wherever I wanted. You can see they look really nice. You'll see in a second. They look really nice in the viewport, just kind of, so you get a lot more control, at least for a still render, with exactly where you want the water to be once it's converted to a mesh. And that just lets me place it exactly where I want and just kind of make it, you know, force it to like fold over certain areas, and like you can really do a lot and get the look you want by just converting it to a mesh and then manually placing that around in different separate little chunks. So that's what I did. So far the only lighting in the scene is just from just an emissive material. So all those white lines that are glowing, that's just white emission, and that's the only lights in here so far. And the water is just catching that. Another thing I did here to bring in a little bit more detail to the water was just take an image plane with a stock photo of like a splash of water. You can find this pretty easily on like Pexels or Unsplash or whatever. So that's just getting mixed in with the other water stuff, and that is helping to just bring out a bit more detail in it. So again, this kind of only works for still images, but it looks really good if you're going to do it, and just adds a lot of like realistic detail to the water, as long as you can't really tell where it's the simulation and the image. But yeah, you just run that into the emission, and that's what I'm doing there. I tried the same thing with some lightning image, but that was fun to have in here, but I didn't end up using that in the final picture. But that image plane technique is really powerful for just getting a whole bunch of different textures layered in with, you know, a more CG kind of look with the fluid simulation. And then for this floor material, I just took a concrete textures normal map, just the normal map from a different concrete texture, and then I put that onto this black reflective plane, and then I'm just controlling where the normal map comes in using a noise texture. So that noise texture is determining the strength of the normal map in certain areas. So it means that certain areas are going to be really flat and reflective, and certain areas are going to be rough with the normal map on full blast, and then the roughness is just pretty much all the way to 0. And that's my favorite like wet floor shader. So then here I'm just refining that a little bit, adjusting the noise texture, and then bringing in some pillar models. These ones are just from the fantasy course I put out last year. These are modeled by HBit Project. He does a bunch of like architectural stuff, so I just found that worked pretty well here. I didn't want too complex of a background, so I felt like something kind of minimal would be good here. So that's what I went with. And then you can see it's really useful to have all these different chunks, because I can, like here, I'm duplicating another one of those. And then I just put a black material on it. So instead of a water shader on that liquid, I'm just literally putting a black principled BSDF with the roughness on 0. And that's just that like dark venom goo shader. That's just black reflective. And that worked really well on just these things. And I'm just duplicating chunks of those to like the outside of the frame, and just kind of getting that around in different areas that I thought were cool. Probably went a bit too crazy with that, but it's all right. And then you can see that the water image planes look really nice in combination with that too. So there's kind of like 3 layers. There's the normal fluid sim with the water shader, the black goo, which is just a duplicated fluid sim mesh with a black shader, and then the image planes with actual water. All that comes together and makes it look really nice. And then I couldn't really decide on the color, but I tried out a bunch of them, and I kind of just landed on this like matrix green tone. So I was happy with that. I think a lot of my renders have been having like a simulation vibe lately, so I was happy to go with that color scheme. And then the only other things I did here was bring in this glitch image and put that on a couple planes, just kind of going around the triangle thing here. So that glitch image is from Midjourney, just the AI generator thing. I'm kind of happy to use AI in that way, just for like random textures here and there. So it's just a glitch image running into the alpha and then the emission color, and I'm just tinting the color green again to match the rest of the scene, and that's also emissive. And I'm trying not to have it too strong, so I'm controlling it with like lowering down the alpha and lowering down the strength and not having it too strong. And then I'm also just mixing in this stock photo of an eye here. Didn't really plan this, but it kind of worked out, and I just liked how it looked, so that's just front and center now with you can just drop in any images you want, use a mix color node set to the multiply blending mode, and then you can just mix in texture after texture after texture. So it's the glitch texture, the eye texture with the mixed color, and then another mixed color to mix in green. And that's kind of what I'm doing there. And then I'm just cleaning it up around there, so there's some empty space behind the eye, so it's not just like lines overlapping it, and you can actually see what's going on. So that's what's going on there. And that was pretty much it for this one. Like, there's not too much else I did. You can see it's a very minimal environment. It's just like a couple of good textures with like a good floor texture with, you know, using that trick of controlling the normal map with the noise texture and having the roughness low. And then getting that fluid simulation and duplicating a few chunks of that around. And, you know, once it got to the point of it being black and white with the triangle in the back, I'll put a clip of it. Past this point, it was quite easy to keep going because, you know, once you have like a cool little base to get off of, it's very easy to take that from that point, which is not finished but looking cool, to finished, because you have like all the energy and motivation you need at that point to keep working on it. And yeah, you know, by the end I was just having fun with it and kind of just adding random details that I thought were cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope that was useful and hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully it gives you some inspiration to kind of make your own kind of renders like this. If you do want more like step-by-step, really in-depth guides that'll teach you how to make these 4 renders here and give you the skills to make a whole bunch of other stuff, go and check out the Cyber Environments course linked below. It has a focus on cyberpunk and urban renders, but you'll learn a lot about just environments in general and that, and you'll be able to make a lot of cool stuff if you go through it. So I do highly recommend that. I'll put a link below if you want to check that out. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in some other video.